Join me for a conversation with Free League Publishing's Director of Streaming.
Welcome to DiceGeeks.com Tabletop RPG Show. Level up your RPG campaigns by filling yourself with stories and knowledge. Explore topics from archaeology to film history to writing to literature and much, much more. This is DiceGeeks.com Tabletop RPG Show.
Welcome to the show. My name is Matt, and I am your host. This is the podcast where we learn how to become better game masters and role players by filling ourselves with stories and knowledge. Hey guys, now I've been doing this podcast for a while now. I hope you are hanging in with me. I am having a ton of fun. However, I need your help. If you could rate, review, subscribe, or whatever it is the kids are doing with podcasts these days, wherever you are listening to this podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. All of those things really help the show grow and help people find the show, and that's exactly what I need. So I would really appreciate it if you did one of those things. Now, guys, I have a great interview. Let's just jump in. My guest today is the Twitch director for Free League Publishing, Matt Jowett. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's my pleasure. I like to start off with learning how people were introduced to tabletop role-playing games. Could you tell us that story?
Sure. It was a bit of a journey. I started in the 90s, I want to say the mid-90s, with D&D second edition, AD&D. And my friends and I, we were looking for games, something to do, something to get into. And we started with, I think we bought a BattleTech minis set, like box set, beginner's box set, and we tried that out. And then we bought Warhammer 40K at the time. We tried that out. That thing's probably worth a fortune now because that was like one of the, I don't know, second editions of the box set that came out. And I don't know whose basement that's in, but I'd love to have that back. And then we're like, hey, let's try, what about that Dungeons and Dragons game? What's that all about? Because none of those other games hit the mark with us. We played them, we had fun, but we're like, okay, well, let's pool our money together. Let's buy, what does it need? A player's handbook, a dungeon master's guide, a monster's manual. So we got it all together, and it went from there. We played many role-play games after that.
Nice. Now, did you start running games quickly, or did you play for a while before you ran a game?
I ran one game. I hated it. And I was like a forever player after that. I did not want to run a game ever again. And I feel bad for my friends who were stuck always running games for me. But now all I do is run games, so it's retribution.
Yeah, there you go. Now, what other games besides D&D did you play? We
played the old West End game Star Wars. We played a ton of that. We were really into that game.
Yeah, so did I.
It was so good, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And that was like before we got like the rush of Star Wars. It was like the mid 90s, like the special editions were just coming out, but there was like that drought still of Star Wars before the floodgates opened. And we were just starved for anything Star Wars.
No kidding. I mean, it really kept kind of the fandom alive, I think, in my opinion.
It did. And those books like wrote the lore for the universe also. Like when you go back and look at them, they pulled all the stuff from those. Well, I guess it's all erased now, whatever that's called, but like all those the names of all the background characters in the cantina and this scene and that scene and all these other characters and connections, those came from the West End Games books. And it became official canon after that. Actually, I interviewed Bill Slavacek on the podcast, and he wrote most of those books. And very cool.
And he talked about how he coined the term Twi'lek and Ithorian and some other names that are still in, that just became part of canon in Star Wars.
That's what. So Twi'lek did not exist before West End Games?
Nope.
Which is great. You think it would be in the books or on the like Bib Fortuna toy or something. It would have existed before that.
Yeah, he told the story on the podcast. It was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was something like it just said Bib Fortuna person or something. And he was like, we need a name for this. and they were like, okay, fine.
That's cool. That's very cool.
I know. It's awesome. I like totally geeked out when I was interviewing him. It was ridiculous. I think I went totally off the rails on that interview. But
that game has made, I think, the biggest impression on most people I speak to or meet who played games in that time.
Yeah.
And they get excited when they see people now playing D6 Star Wars. I find.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. We played a lot of that. We played Cyberpunk 2020. We loved that. That game kind of blew him. I love the setting. I remember renting Blade Runner from my local library way too young. They should not have lent it to me, but it was a library, so they don't care.
Yeah.
And then that kind of like fueled my imagination. And then I found Cyberpunk. We played a whole bunch of that, and I was like, "Whoa, this is cool." Cool setting. And then we met some other kids, another group that played role playing games, and they introduced us to a whole bunch of the Palladium games, and those were wild.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went through the Palladium games, and I have a love-hate relationship. They're amazing. Like they're just the lore, and I really loved the artwork back then, and all the stuff was just so cool. And then just trying to play them just kind of broke my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. I was there. I've been there.
Yeah. They had a ton of cool stuff. All right. Well, but now, starting with a hobby, you are Twitch director for Free League Publishing, which I find very interesting. Why don't you tell us a little about Free League before we kind of dive into kind of what you're doing now?
Sure. Free League, they're a role-playing company based out of Sweden, and they kind of, blew up on the scene a number of years back with their first game, Mutineer Zero. They've produced a number of games in Swedish before that, but North American audiences first were introduced to them with Mutineer Zero, and that utilizes their Year Zero engine, which is used in most of their games. And it's a D6 base system. And what it really boils down to, the only thing that matters when you roll the dice are sixes and ones. Sixes are good, ones are bad. That's the Year Zero engine, but they do a Mutineer Zero, they do Coriolis, they do Symbaroum, they do Forbidden Lands, they do Alien, they do Vaesen, Mutineer Zero. I know I'm forgetting some. I'm trying to look at the bookshelf next to me as I'm rattling games off.
Tales from the Loop.
Tales from the Loop, Things from the Flood. Thank you. And they've just kind of, every game they're putting out is a hit. They're all great. Recently, they did Twilight 2000 was on Kickstarter, and right now, as we speak, The One Ring is on Kickstarter and is like annihilating all of its goals. Nice. And they've and like you said, every game's a hit. When one of your games, I guess, shows up as an Amazon original TV series, that's pretty cool. That's right. Yeah. Tales from the Loop has its own TV show. They do quite well at the Ennies every year whenever they release a new game. Yeah.
And the artwork is the best in the business, really.
It's fantastic. You have Simon, who does all the work in the Things from the Flood and Tales from the Loop games. They produce art books of his as well. That's how they originally found him, by the way. He was doing original art books, and they agreed to publish them. He's in Sweden as well. And then they're like, can we make games out of your art? and it kind of spiraled out of there. They also have Martin Grip is another one that they use a lot. He does the art on Alien, Symbaroum, The One Ring now, and his art is also fantastic.
Yeah. They're all incredibly beautiful books, and it's just like you said, just amazing. The like hit after hit that comes out from them. So it is quite amazing. So now you're the Twitch director. So like, tell us, kind of break down, what does that mean? And maybe how you got there even.
What does that mean? I ask myself that every day. What does that mean? Okay. How did I get there? So I started my own channel streaming on Twitch 3 years ago. I want to say 3 years ago, just about this point. And when I started my channel, I set out, I'm going to run games that nobody else is doing. So I'm not going to have, and nothing against these games, I'm not going to do D&D. I'm not going to do Pathfinder. I want to shine a light on games that people aren't aware of, that are good out there, and they should be playing. So I started with a whole slew of games, and I ran the channel for a good 4 or 5 months before Forbidden Lands. Forbidden Lands came out, and that game, like, all of a sudden, I was the first to stream Forbidden Lands from Free League Publishing, and it kind of like helped me find my audience, which was really cool. It's kind of like the game that made my channel, bring people to it. Every week, people would show up to see how many characters died. I was dubbed the Grim Streamer because we had at least one death every week in Forbidden Lands.
Could you tell us a little about Forbidden Lands?
Yeah, Forbidden Lands, it and Alien are my two favorite Free League games. Forbidden Lands is a fantasy-based role-playing game, but it is gritty. It is not in the sense of like grimdark gritty, but it's a harsh world. It's a risk versus reward type of game. So, for example, like I said, you roll d6s with the Year Zero engine, right? So you build up a pool of d6s based off of what your attributes are, your skills, your weapons. You roll your handful of dice and say there's no sixes on there whatsoever. That you have no successes. You've failed your roll. All you need is one success to pass. But say you've got a whole bunch of those nasty ones on there. Well, what you can do is you can push your roll. So you can re-roll everything except for your ones. But if you re-roll all of those ones and any additional ones you roll, they hurt you. They hurt your character. They take away from your hit points and your attributes and things like that. But in doing so, you also gain this in-game currency known as willpower points, which you can cash in then to do the cool, amazing talents that your character has that make you your character. So you almost need to hurt yourself to do the cool things in the world. And that's where character death, a lot of it came in, was, these players pushing themselves. It wasn't me being a nasty, mean GM and be like, I'm going to kill you this week. It came down to them pushing themselves in dire situations. And also, one of the neat things with Forbidden Lands and also with Alien, they also do this as well. A lot of the creatures actually have random attack tables. So the GM can't sit there and just like spam the most powerful attack they have. It's usually a D6 table. You roll D6 and it randomly determines what attack the GM does in combat, which I think is really cool. You can't have an adversarial GM just kind of like gang up on one person, because it'll even dictate if it like jumps to a different target and things like that. It's very random all around. And it's also a hex crawl is a huge part of it. It kind of goes back to role-playing roots and back to the hex crawl, and stronghold building is a big part of it. It really goes back to the old days of role-playing and the themes that were found in there, but a very harsh and unforgiving world that it's set in.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And actually, I usually just, when I'm running games, I'll usually just roll randomly to see who the monster attacks and stuff sometimes, because usually if it's a big climactic scene, I'm usually so tired by the end of the session that I just don't want to think about some kind of strategy or something like that. But so that's interesting that they use a mechanic in there built into the game.
Yeah. Alien does the same thing. It's fantastic. The aliens, you never know what they're going to do. And they're terrifying, of course, when they show up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of interrupted you there, but so you had started your own channel, but then Forgotten Lands kind of took off. And so I guess that got the attention of Free League?
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
It's a charity. I was one of the games I showcased on my channel early on was Zweihander. It was actually the first game I had brought on. They had just won the ENnie.
Yeah.
And Daniel Fox, who created the game, actually reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to come on over and run their Twitch channel for them, get it off the ground and run it and kind of be Twitch director over there. So I got my feet wet and I did that for a year. Okay. And I never stopped being a hardcore Free League fanboy. All those years, like I was hooked after Forbidden Lands. I was like, what is this company? I love their games. I want to run and play all their games. And I kept a close eye on what they were doing, what was going on there. And I noticed that they had a presence everywhere. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or not on Twitch, Twitter, forums are huge on the forums. But there was a gap there. They didn't have a Twitch channel. So I reached out to them out of the blue and just said, hey, like, this is what I've been doing. I've done this for another game and I'd be interested in working with you and setting up a channel and establishing something. Is this something you'd be interested in? Are you looking at getting into this streaming field of Twitch? And I waited a week and another week and another week, and I never heard anything back. And I was like, okay, well, I gave it the old college try, the unsolicited sales pitch. I have a sales background, so I pulled on my working skills. And I think it was like 3 weeks later, out of the blue, I got an email back saying like, yes, we've actually been talking about a Twitch channel. You sound like you'd be a great fit. I was like, sweet, cool. And it kind of just spiraled out from there.
Nice. And so, before we kind of get into what you're running and stuff now, I just, I guess it just shows my age a little bit, but like I did not see streaming coming at all, right? Like I did not envision people watching people play role-playing games. And like I said, I usually give away my age when I say things like that. How do you? Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say I'm the same way. I turned 40 in a week here, so we might be, so like I to me, watching other people play role-playing games, I don't get it. I do it, and I don't always get it. But no, I hear what you're saying. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, it's a big deal, and of course, I enjoy listening sometimes when I get a chance. But I just wanted to kind of ask, and I know I've asked, some people kind of this thing, the same question sometimes, but I'm just kind of fascinated with like, how do you think that streaming is changing the hobby? Is it changing the hobby in some way?
I do. It is. Well, we've seen with Critical Role, it's grown the audience, the awareness, awareness of the hobby. It has. It's fantastic. I know people like to poo-poo and say what they will about Critical Role, but like they are to thank for like the renaissance we are seeing in this hobby right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, come on now. Don't come down on them.
No. Absolutely.
There's good coming from that. So yeah, they're like streaming is to thank for all of this wonderful stuff that's going on in role-playing games right now. Mm-hmm. I also think, with the state of the world as it is in 2020 and 2021 with the pandemic and everything, people have to move online now for these things. You can't get together with friends until, it's quote unquote okay. And thanks to these programs like Roll20s and Fantasy Grounds and Twitch and YouTubes and all these things that are out there, people have been able to almost seamlessly take their home games online and just keep continuing on with them with like little to no road bumps.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I totally agree with what you're saying about like, with streaming and Critical Role. And it is, I mean, I just love the fact that people are playing, more and more people are playing tabletop role-playing games. It is just phenomenal. And so, like I said, I didn't see it coming, but I don't have a problem with it. And, I think it's awesome. But I was just a little slow on the, seeing that one coming, but, I think it is incredible. And you're absolutely right that it's just, grown the audience so much that we're really in kind of a golden age.
We really are. And I think another thing that's really helped contribute to what we're seeing in role-playing games is the cost of, or the low cost of self-producing your own books and games. We are seeing insane creativity on the indie front right now. And that's thanks to low-cost printing or crowdfunding and things like that as well, that we would have not seen 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is another part of the popularity, of tabletops as well, that you can find something like, there's something for everyone that, and the amount of creativity, like you're saying, is just it's just really really phenomenal. Obviously, I mean, I do the same thing. I publish books and it wouldn't have been possible. You're right, it wouldn't have been possible, say even 2010. It would have been very difficult to even do something like that.
The costs, the options weren't there. Well, even look at Zine Quest right now. We're still in February. Zine Quest takes over Kickstarter for a month. It has a banner across the top of Kickstarter, and it's nothing but role-playing based products, be it adventures or original games or whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if I remember right, that like role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games is like the #1 channel on Kickstarter. They're the most let me word this right. They get funded more than other projects do. Like if somebody's just doing whatever, but a tabletop role-playing game actually has a higher funding rate. That those products have higher funding rates than like the other categories that are on Kickstarter.
I could see that with tabletop role-playing games and board games. I could totally see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I don't know if he's still there, but it wasn't. I think it was like Luke Crane was running the role playing game section of Kickstarter for a while, at least. I don't know if he's still there. He might be, but he created Burning Wheel and some other games that are based on that. I think. What is it? Mouse Guard, I think.
Yep.
Something like that. So maybe that has something to do with it, but it is incredible that, like you're saying, it's just like Kickstarter is a platform for tabletop role-playing games. It's just fascinating. And especially, like we had mentioned earlier, back in kind of the early 90s or so, when I was playing a Star Wars, the West End Star Wars game, if I could find somebody else who played a role-playing game, either D&D or Star Wars or something, like we became best friends because we had nobody else to play with.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, now so many people are playing, it is phenomenal. And I think, I think you're absolutely right that streaming and the ease of self-publishing have just, allowed the audience to really explode.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never answered the second part of your question. We went off on
we got on a
little love in for role playing games right now, which is cool. I'll do that any chance I get. But you're also wondering what is a Twitch director for Free League entail? So, part of my pitch to them was like, there are so many great people and great channels out there right now streaming Free League content. They're doing a great job, and I don't want to compete with them. I don't want to take anything away from them. And we should shine a light on those people. And I wanted to create an opportunity or a platform for people to come on the channel and share their passion and love for Free League games. Because there are a lot of people out there who are finding them. Alien has blown up. Alien, I don't know if you've seen or watched any games, but I talked to so many people and they're like, I streamed Alien. It's my best YouTube video that I've ever put up. It's getting the most views. Like Alien is just crazy for people, but just provide a platform for people to share their passion, their love for Free League games. They can come on the channel, they can run it. We will promote the heck out of them. So you know where to find them when they're not on the Free League channel. Go to their channel, subscribe to them, follow them, and all that good stuff. Also bring the people on from behind the scenes. So I every month I have a number of guests that come on the channel, be it designers or artists, or one of my reoccurring guests. It's turned into a monthly stint now. Is Drew Gaska, he's the lead writer for the Alien RPG. He's also the author for the various adventures that came out. But he's a really interesting guy because he is the IP consultant for Alien, Predator, and Planet of the Apes for Fox, or I guess Disney at this point. So he works for them, and like if anybody creates something for any of those IPs, they have to go to him and be like, does this work in the world?
Wow.
So he comes on every month and we chat Alien and we chat whatever else, and we do fun things like let's take a movie that's kind of like Alien and talk about how we can like take elements from it and put it in your role-playing game. We've looked at Outland and Annihilation are the first couple movies we looked at. And so bringing these people on behind the scenes, letting people know who they are. Like you're getting hours of enjoyment out of these products, tens of hundreds of hours sometimes out of these products. And you have no idea who the person is who wrote it. And just let's shine a little bit of a spotlight on them. So we do that. We do first looks of games, like we did The One Ring. We did an actual play of it just the other week while it was on Kickstarter right now, and gave people a chance to see what it will look like when it's done. It's still an alpha, so you can. That's not the final product, but still, it gives backers an idea of what to expect. And so that was the pitch, and this is what we're doing. And a lot of what I do as the producer is I set up the calendar. I set up a calendar months in advance. I'm reaching out to people. I'm finding channels that are running Free League, asking them, do you want to come on? Would you be interested? We'd love to have you. Organizing with them, getting them online. There are people who just want to be players who don't run channels, but they're passionate about the games, working with them to maybe cast them, bring them on and share their passion. And just, like I said, a place for people to get together and just love these games that Free League are producing. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. It sounds fantastic. I wouldn't mind talking to him about Planet of the Apes or something like that. That'd be fun.
He's a super interesting guy. So it's just like, how did you get this job? Like,
kidding.
With these three giant IPs. And so he wrote the Bible for Predator and Planet of the Apes. So the Alien one he told me already existed, and he kind of just picked it up and has added to it. But he wrote from scratch the Bibles for Predator and Planet of the Apes franchises.
That's incredible. Is there a Planet of the Apes role-playing game out there?
Not that I'm aware of.
I know, neither am I. Oh my gosh, somebody's got to pick that up.
I'm sure the IP is available.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh man, I probably don't have enough to pay for the license though. Gosh. Oh man, that would be awesome. But that sounds that just sounds amazing. Now, but you also said that you're running games, so you're running a lot of the games on the channel?
Yeah, you can see my mug on there quite a bit. Like, I don't know, the quote unquote house GM. I don't know what you'd call me, but I am running games. So we kicked off the channel launched in mid to early September of last year. It coincided with the release of an Alien Adventure Destroyer of Worlds. So we kicked off the channel and the very first show, and I ran Destroyer of Worlds for once a week for how many ever weeks we did Alien. I'm blanking on what have I done since then. Alien, The One Ring. We've done Twilight 2000 while it was on Kickstarter. I have a monthly game of Forbidden Lands that I'm doing. I'm starting another weekly game of Forbidden Lands this Sunday. It's always changing. I'm basically whatever new product comes out for Free League. Mm-hmm. I want to try to be able to, if it's a new adventure, try to run it to coincide with it releasing. That's been one of my goals, so people can see it. That was one of the things when I got back into role playing 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I got a new book. I didn't want to read it. I was too lazy. So I go on YouTube and I watch someone else run it and I go, oh, that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's actually kind of one of the other, one of the other advantages of streaming and why it's kind of changing the hobby. I just remember, decades in the past, that, I'd pick up a Palladium game or something and I had no idea how to run it. Mm-hmm. Now you can just watch somebody stream it or watch it on YouTube and you'll see somebody who's done it before, just running the rules and running through it. It would have helped me immensely, back in 1990 or whatever.
Right. No, exactly. There's that. And I'll Google like cheat sheet for X game and someone's produced like a 1-page cheat sheet. You're like, oh, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a lot of the Kickstart or like quick start kind of free rules and things for so many games now that you can just check them out and see if they kind of align with something that you want to do or seem interesting. I mean, it's just amazing the stuff that is out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if somebody were to say, hey, I want to start streaming, what would you say to them?
That is a good question. Stick with it. Don't be discouraged. It's a small pool, like for this industry, at least for this hobby. And it can be discouraging. You're going to start, you're going to get no viewers. You're going to think you have viewers. You're going to find out they're bots. I talked to bots for like the first, I don't know how many weeks. I'm like, hey, so-and-so, thanks for joining us again. Then I found out later on, oh, that's a bot in my chat. Okay, well, we had no viewers again this week. Don't get discouraged by that. People will find you. You will find an audience. There's no guarantee that it's going to be a huge audience, but you will find an audience over time. People will find you, they'll latch on to you. They're going to find something they like. So stick with it. Persevere. Don't worry also about having the greatest of the gear, having that gaming chair and having that $1,000 microphone and having like the floodlights in front of you and the best camera possible. I had a green screen. You don't need it. Like when I started streaming, we used to use Discord, we used voice, nobody saw us. Don't worry about that. And you don't have to have like a gorgeous VTT, virtual tabletop. You don't need to have like a map for this and animated this and music playing. Start simple. Just start running games that you enjoy, that you love. Get a group of passionate players together and have fun. Have fun and stick with it.
I think that's great advice. I think a lot of times we can get caught up and think we can be, we can look like the pros without even kind of starting with some of the basics and kind of getting some of them down at first.
And I think some people believe by having those things, they're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And you're not.
Yeah.
Like I remember I tried learning. I still haven't picked it up, but I bought a guitar years and years ago, and I remember the person in the store being like, "Hey, you can buy the cheapest guitar and you can buy the most expensive guitar. It's not going to make you a better guitar player." It's right at the end of the day. It's not going to. It's like a more expensive one might help you learn better because it'll be easier to play on, but it's not going to make you a better player. And it's the same kind of like idea for this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I think, I mean, I can see it in my own life. I think sometimes we get carried away and we think the tools are going to make us great instead of persevering and trying to learn some of the basics first.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you think? Do you have any advice for somebody who is running a tabletop while you're streaming it, that did you have to kind of change some things about the way you ran games, or now you had said you didn't run much before? Is that right?
I never ran anything.
Okay.
I don't know what like clicked in me, because to be honest, like I joke that I'm a forever GM these days. I like running games more than I like playing them. To be perfectly honest, and I don't know when that happened. Like I knew I kept acquiring games because something about them appealed to me, but I could never find anybody to run them, and that was probably it. It was like, okay, if I'm ever going to play this, I'm gonna have to run it, and then I can find players. It's much easier to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it was clicked in my brain. It's like, okay, I like doing this more now. Instead of playing one player or one character, I like to play all of the characters except for the PCs ones, right? and do the world building and all that stuff on the back end. So yeah, I don't know what it was, when it was, but it must be because I just kept buying damn books and I needed to run them myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I've mentioned on the podcast before, if especially when I was younger, if you bought the book, it meant you were the GM, right? Like, it just meant you were the GM. It's like, hey, do you want to play this? I have the book. Do you want to run a game? No, you run I have the book. I'm going to have to run the game.
I've tried it. Don't get me wrong. I've been that guy.
Yeah, I know.
Deadlands. It was the original was it the original Deadlands? It wasn't the most recent one. So yeah, would have been the one in the mid to late 90s. And I remember buying it. I wanted to play it so bad. And I was like, will you please run this for me? And everybody's like, no.
Yeah. You have all the books. Why don't you run me in it? Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh. But I think I enjoy running games obviously quite a bit, and I enjoy playing as well. So I like sitting on both sides of the table and enjoying them. But I'm just wondering though, since you didn't run before, I guess then just running streaming was like, did you just like take to it really quickly? It didn't require you to like, any adjustments since you hadn't run before?
Well, I cut my teeth on someone else's channel before I started my own.
Okay.
The Twitch channel Praetor's Rejects, the gentleman who runs it there, Duff. He's my mentor. He showed me the way. I met up with him and a group of other people that were starting a D&D 5e West Marches game, and they needed a whole bunch of GMs to help run this thing. They had a whole bunch of players signed up, and I was one of the GMs. I was like, "Yeah, I want to run this. I'm in. West Marches sounds amazing." And that's how I kind of got into the streaming, because he already had a channel and he wanted to stream all these games. He wanted to make it a big event and stream it. Unfortunately, it played out that I was the only GM that ended up running anything, and I ended up getting burned out.
Oh,
by
gosh.
the end of it. And I was like, I don't want to do it. But I cut my teeth there. I did my learning there from someone who had already been doing it for years, and they kind of mentored me and showed me the way, and they told me what tools I needed on the back end and what to do here. And, they told me like things are going to go wrong, which is another piece of advice I give to people who want to do this and start out. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go wrong all the time. Things are going to go wrong, especially when you start. Don't be discouraged. Keep it up. It happens to everybody. Even the seasoned veterans, things still go wrong on their streams. So don't be discouraged by that. But he showed me the way. I learned everything on his channel, and it fell apart. And I was like, I've got this mic and I've got this camera now. Whatever. I'm done with it. And then I was in a weekly group at that time, and one of the guys was like, well, hey, why don't you start streaming the games that we play? I was like, no, that's silly. Why would I do that? And then I thought about it. I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to start streaming our games that we play here. I have all this equipment and gear that I bought. I'm going to put it to use.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so now you had said you've been doing this for like 3 or so years. Have you learned anything about GMing that you would like to pass on to some GMs out there who are looking to up their games?
I don't know. We're all a GM is always learning. If you think you got to figure it out, you don't. We're always learning. We're learning from each other.
Oh yeah.
You can always pick up new tools and advice. For GMing online, I don't know. I'm thinking that's a good one.
Okay.
I don't know. Don't lose sight of your players when you're running online, because you can get really pulled into like what's going on in chat. People will, you have some instances where people are dropping money, they're dropping bits, and they want things to happen on screen, and you can get pulled into that. And remember, at the end of the day, at least for me when I'm running games, it's the player's story. It's not my story. It's not the viewer's story. So don't lose sight that this is still about the players and the players' characters, and get caught up on everything else that's going on around you in the noise.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I think some of the worst sessions I've ever had is when I was trying to tell my story without letting my players in on the fun, and only to realize later on that I should have written a short story or something if I was going to do something like that.
You know, it's a good lesson learned. It's a lesson that most GMs, I think, learn. Hopefully majority learn it over time, because we do, we all go into it, we're the world builders. We want to tell, we have this grandiose story that we want to tell and come across, and it doesn't always work that way. And that's okay. You need to understand. I was running a Star Wars game for friends the other week, and we don't stream it. It's all offline. And I'd introduced the big bad, and he came into the scene, and it was meant to like, I'm going to capture you now. I'm the big bad of this game. And one of the players was like, I'm challenging him. I'm like, all right. I did the GM. Are you sure? Question. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to challenge him. I'm like, okay. And one of the other players was like, yeah, I'm getting in on this too. And they were both Jedis, and they didn't have lightsabers yet. And this guy was like, he was offering to one of them to become an apprentice and trying to pull him dark side. They didn't take it, and they fought him. And it was an incredible role-playing experience and battle. What played out, it was so incredibly cinematic. We were using the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars, which is already with the dice, the situations and what come out of those dice are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what played out was one of the most crazy cinematic type battles I have ever GM'd. The players kicked his ass, and it was so cool what played out and what happened. And, if old me, or like the one who like, I want to tell my story, sat in there, that would have never taken place. I had one of the players, I think he's in his mid 40s. He's been role playing since he was a kid. He said, Matt, that is one of the best role playing experiences I've ever had, like in any game in my life. And I was like, it meant a lot to me to hear that. And it was like, and again, it was me just saying like, step back and let them do what they want to do. Let them tell their story. And they were prepared to die if it went that way. But instead, this crazy, heroic fight played out where they were victorious.
Yeah.
It was so good. And you know what? I can write another big bad for the session. I can always create another one. They killed that one. Who cares?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's awesome. That is an awesome example, because yes, there would have been a time when I was, say, 14 or 15 or 16 that I would have been like, you can't kill him now.
Yeah.
You just can't. And it would have ruined the whole session, or, it would have just ruined it. And instead of just going with what the players are going, what they're trying to do. I always find that that's, I don't know, especially, in recent years and stuff, it just opens up the sessions and makes it just a lot more fun for me and for the players as well.
I agree. And I know this word is a buzzword and thrown around a lot, but collaborative storytelling, a lot of people use it, but it does boil down to, like I said, it's not my story. I'm presenting obstacles and options, but really they're deciding where they want to go and what they want to do in that game. Or any game, not just Star Wars.
Yeah, sure. No, I think, for me too, that took, not only did it lead to, sessions that were more fun for me and for my players, it took a lot of pressure off me as the GM because I was under the impression, maybe this is where, like I was mentioning earlier, it would have been handy if I could have watched somebody stream something in 1992 or something, but that it took a lot of pressure off me as the GM because I thought I had to have kind of like a lot of these big things planned out and orchestrated when in reality, I could just throw complications or different situations at my players, and some of those kind of big climactic moments just, pop up, organically from what they are trying to do and how they're interacting with just some obstacles that I throw at them.
And it's way better than what you probably would have planned originally too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Cause I have a very, you can get stuck in a very narrow thing. Right. And, just try to repeat something you saw in a movie or read in a book or something.
Right.
Instead of getting, 5-6 creative minds coming together and creating something that it just takes on a life of its own.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now if I'm thinking, I know you had mentioned like streaming and having an audience, that there's not going to be anybody, like viewing or whatever at some point when, of course, when you run your first stream. Would you have any tips for somebody if they've been streaming? Are there any tips to try to build an audience?
Yeah, it's like a fine line of not being belligerent.
Oh, gosh.
But I don't know. But like, go find these communities, right? So if you're going to run Call of Cthulhu, let's say, go find a Call of Cthulhu Reddit and let people know, like, hey, I'm streaming X adventure. I'm going to stream this game at this time on this night, and people might show up. Go, if there's like a lot of games have a general Discord, like don't go into some channels Discord because that's just rude. Like if you went to, I don't know, think whatever big channel is streaming channels out there, you go to the Discord and like, hey, don't watch these guys run 5e, come watch me run instead. That's rude. So it's a fun line, right? Go on forums, go on Reddit. If there are Discords that are general Discords, they allow you to advertise what you're doing. Go ahead and ask permission to put your games in those channels. I did not use social media prior to doing this. I got on Twitter. I've been using Twitter since I started doing streaming. Twitter and role-playing games, well, we connected over Twitter. Anybody and everybody who's like an author or someone who's of note, I'd say or a designer in the role-playing industry is typically on Twitter, and you can communicate with them. You can like at them or send them a message and they'll answer you back. Like it's like the one place and like the one hobby where you'll find most of those authors, designers, whoever, like the notable folks in the industry or in the hobby are there, and you can interact with them. So start a Twitter account, get on there, start promoting your game, tag them if they don't mind or whatever that you're going to be running their game. Because a lot of times these folks are independent game designers, and they'd love to see someone else running their game. So if you tag them, they usually promote it as well and let their following know that you're running, I don't know, City of Mist or something, Savage Worlds, I don't know, whatever. Mothership.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely correct, especially about Twitter, because you can just talk to anybody nowadays.
You really can.
Yeah, you can just reach out and talk to like anybody. I mean, I've had, a couple New York Times bestselling authors on the podcast. I reached out on Twitter, at least for one of them that I remember. And I've had, just other people just they're there on Twitter and they want to talk about their games and they want, and they love the hobby. And it's just amazing that we can talk to anybody. And then I think too, like you said, that there are companies out there that would like fall over themselves backwards if you started streaming their game. They would absolutely love it if somebody was streaming one of their games.
At the end of the day, it's also free advertising for them.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Right? You're advertising a product. You might not do it well. I don't know, but it's still advertising.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, how much did I'm forgetting the name right now, but that stream of Stars Without Number, help that game explode?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is huge. It was just huge for that game. And I'm sure, obviously, like we had mentioned before, Critical Role with D&D. I mean, it's just, it just feeds into the whole thing. And it's great advertising for some of these games. It's just, and what better advertisement could you get than somebody playing the actual game, showing people how to have fun with the game?
And especially if they're passionate about it.
Yes.
It comes through. It comes through in video. It comes through if it's just audio even. You hear that passion.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, where can people watch you run your games?
You can find me on the Free League Twitch channel. So that's www.twitch.tv/Free League Publishing is where you can find me most of the time. I do hop around from time to time. I also have a GM on a channel by the name of Garblag Games. They're also on Twitch, and it's twitch.tv/Garblag, GARBLAGGAMES games. Currently I'm running Call of Cthulhu, The Masks of Nyarlathotep over there. So that's a lot of fun. That's an adventure I started once and I didn't get to finish. So I'm getting back to it now and I'm going to run it all the way through. Damn it.
That sounds great. Do you have a schedule for like when your games run and things like that?
Yes, kind of. On Twitch right now, the only regular show I have a monthly show, but it kind of bounces around. Like we decide month to month when we're going to play because it's all content creators. So we all kind of fit within our schedule when that's going to be. So I can't tell you when that one is, but starting this Sunday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Free League Twitch channel, I am going to kick off Forbidden Lands, and I'm going to be running the Dark of Hot Springs Island Hexcrawl adventure on there using Forbidden Lands. So 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for that. And my Masks of Nyarlathotep game over on Garblag Games, that runs at 3:30 Central Standard Time in the afternoon every Tuesday. They're a UK-based channel, so this is more of a European-friendly stream that you find me on. So 3:30 Central Standard Time over on Garblag Games for Masks of Nyarlathotep. We're only like 2 or 3 episodes in, and we've got Sirenscape. We're using their sounds, and it's fantastic. It just adds to the atmosphere where they have programmable sounds for every situation that you could possibly run into in that adventure.
Nice. No, that sounds awesome. And I will, of course, in the show notes for this episode, I will place those links. So people listening, if you would just head over to dicegeeks.com, find the show notes for this episode, I will have links there so you can check out Matt and his games that he is running on Twitch. So Matt, it was just it was an awesome pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Matt. He gave us some great insights into streaming. And if you haven't noticed, streaming is going to be around for a long, long time, and it is going to play an important role in the future of tabletop role-playing games. As I mentioned in the episode, I have provided links where you can find Matt's games in the show notes for this episode at dicegeeks.com. So head over there, check out his games. If you want some free stuff, head over to dicegeeks.com/free. You'll get 10 free dungeon maps. You'll never miss an episode of this show. And each and every Friday, you'll get an email update from me letting you know what is going on at Dice Geeks. Also, if you enjoy the podcast and you want to support it financially, you can head over to patreon.com/dicegeeks and learn how to support the show there. Also, as I mentioned at the top, you can rate, review, subscribe, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Those things help immensely. Now, guys, I thank you so much for listening. And until next Wednesday, keep gaming.